The year is 2027. The NATO-established order in Europe is collapsing. In a few hours, the private military giant, the Peacekeeper Coalition, is set to completely take over NATO's military base in Georgia. However, just as Sergeant Murphy and his Storm Squad are preparing for extraction, a fierce barrage of artillery strikes. Based on the markings, it's the Peacekeeper Coalition. But here's the kicker. The base will be theirs in a few hours anyway. Why the sudden full-scale assault? With no time to ponder, the squad grabbed their rifles and rushed out. The Storm Squad was tasked with a classified mission to ensure the safe evacuation of a vital network server. After their requested air support was shot down by Peacekeeper fighter jets, the team realized two things. First, someone had secretly sold advanced jets to the enemy, and second, extracting the server was no longer an option. The only way forward was to destroy it completely. Storm Squad quickly breached the building housing the server, planted a massive amount of explosive charges, fought their way through the Peacekeeper ambush, and jumped aboard the waiting extraction helicopter. As Murphy hit the detonator, the building erupted in a raging inferno. The squad suspected the coalition wouldn't launch an all-out war just for a single server. They must have overlooked something crucial. Regardless of what it was, their first priority was to return to HQ. Just then, a Peacekeeper fighter jet roared past, and its missile slammed into the helicopter. After a dizzying spin, Murphy was mostly fine, but his teammates were all gravely wounded. More Peacekeeper soldiers were closing in. One by one, his 3 comrades fell before his eyes. Murphy himself was down to his very last magazine. "I'm coming for you, brothers," he yelled. Just as he charged out for a final stand, the blinding spotlight of a friendly helicopter swept across his vision. Murphy was saved. Flash forward to 2028. Inside a safe house in the U.S. heartland, the TV broadcasts news of the Peacekeeper Coalition's offensive in Tajikistan. The woman who owns the safe house was listening to the news when she suddenly sensed something was wrong. Someone was approaching the house outside in the heavy rain. She drew her weapon, ready for a fight, but the moment she saw the person's face, she froze. The person who arrived was someone she knew. It was Murphy. After barely escaping Georgia with his life, Murphy had joined the Dagger Squad, and the owner of this safe house was none other than his direct superior, Mills. Mills explained that she had been trying to establish contact for days, since Dagger Squad went dark. "And look at you," she remarked, "you've retreated all the way back to the homeland." To put it bluntly, Murphy and Dagger Squad were committing an act of treason. Murphy offered no defense. Instead, he brought up a mission the squad undertook 6 months ago, in Gibraltar, directly under Mills' command. Following the Georgia incident, Italy, France, and Spain all aligned with the Peacekeeper Coalition. Therefore, NATO desperately needed to seize control of the Strait of Gibraltar. Amidst a powerful musical score, Page, the sniper, successfully airdropped with Dagger's veteran leader, Carter. Page quickly eliminated the Peacekeepers' forward positions, helping the assault team neutralize the enemy's anti-air defenses. Page truly proved herself a remarkable operator. Without even wearing tactical gloves, she fearlessly rappelled down the elevator's steel cables, and her hands were perfectly fine. What a powerhouse! With the airspace cleared, friendly air power arrived on the scene, providing cover for Murphy and his comrade, Lopez, who were leading the main landing force. In 2028, they were storming the beach in a Cold War relic, the AV amphibious assault vehicle, which had freshly retired in real-life 2025. They successfully secured the beachhead and began their advance toward the Peacekeeper Coalition's Tactical Operations Center. However, just as they regrouped with Carter and Page, they discovered that the commander of the assault team, Page had just assisted, was unexpectedly captured. Worse, he was brutally executed on the spot by a Peacekeeper commander named Kincaid. Carter seemed to recognize Kincaid, but he couldn't figure out how the enemy knew the assault team's movements. They immediately launched a surprise attack. Yet they were one step too late. It was as if Kincaid knew Dagger Squad was coming. He had already evacuated with all the vital intelligence. Returning to the present timeline, that was the very question Murphy and his team needed to ask Mills. "You said NATO had comprehensive surveillance over the area. How did Kincaid manage to slip away right under your nose?" Mills' explanation was that perhaps the Peacekeeper Coalition had acquired some new technology that NATO wasn't aware of. The kind of new tech the Peacekeepers are using, I don't know, but... Murphy was even more curious. Did the same thing happen in Cairo too? Murphy was referring to the mission 3 months prior, which was 3 months after the Gibraltar operation. At that time, Egypt's government had also fully aligned with the Peacekeeper Coalition. The streets were filled with protesters, and clashes with the Peacekeepers were erupting everywhere. The entire country was descending into a full-scale civil war. Murphy warned Lopez, who was eager to intervene, that none of this concerned their objective. It turned out that the owner of a biometric technology company, who was trying to play both sides, had proactively offered intelligence to NATO, claiming he was meeting with the peacekeepers that night for a deal. Mills had deployed Dagger Squad to confirm exactly what new technology the peacekeepers had acquired. However, upon infiltrating the area, they discovered that the peacekeepers had betrayed the owner, killing him to silence him and steal his assets. Seeing Dagger Squad, the dying man managed to utter, "Mills promised me." Time was critical, so Carter quickly cut him off and asked, "What about the intel?" Who knew that with his final burst of strength, the owner only managed to flash a thumbs up. He died instantly. Clearly, the boss wasn't simply obsessed with playing Death Stranding. Murphy realized that as a biometrics expert, the owner might be trying to say the intel was hidden in his thumb. So Murphy quickly severed the thumb. To secure this grim piece of evidence, Lopez nearly got himself killed by an enemy sniper. Fortunately, the timely arrival of an armored vehicle from the local resistance force allowed them to successfully escape Cairo. Afterward, the severed thumb was handed over to Mills. Mills did confirm that the radio frequency chip, hidden inside the thumb, revealed the Peacekeeper Coalition had indeed developed a new cloaking technology that concealed their movements. Mills suppressed this specific intelligence. She only informed Dagger Squad about the plan, also found on the chip, that the Peacekeepers were going to attack Brooklyn. Now it seems the Peacekeepers used this very technology to bypass identification and monitoring systems and infiltrate the US homeland. And guess where this technology originated? That's right, from the very server that Storm Squad was supposed to protect. Back in Georgia. But the building containing the server was blown up, wasn't it? How did the Peacekeeper Coalition manage to recover and extract the data? Next, they discussed the Brooklyn operation, which took place 9 days after the Cairo mission. At the time, the president insisted on holding the NATO summit, despite Mills' warnings that the Peacekeeper Coalition had already infiltrated the area. However, as a precaution, the president secretly deployed the warship Artemis to stand by off the coast. With Mills' intelligence support, Dagger Squad quickly eliminated some minor hostiles and stormed Kincaid's makeshift command center. Kincaid himself managed to escape once again, but the extensive documents left behind in the command center revealed something devastating. There was a mole, and the traitor was right on board the USS Artemis. It turned out Kincaid never relied on those minor hostiles. His true plan was to use the missiles on the Artemis to bomb New York City. Just as Mills rapidly deployed the CIA to upload a countersignal, Kincaid's call ordering the evacuation of his command center came through. The moment Kincaid saw Carter, he was stunned. It turned out the two not only knew each other, but they had once fought side by side as comrades. The backstory. During a joint US-UK operation investigating biological weapons near the Iranian border, Carter and Kincaid, commanding Delta Force and the Special Air Service respectively, were cut off and surrounded by the enemy due to communication failure. They suffered heavy casualties. After breaking through the siege, Carter ordered Kincaid to go back and rescue the trapped SAS soldiers. Carter waited, but Kincaid never returned. Believing Kincaid and his men were lost, Carter abandoned them and returned to save his own Delta Force troops. Kincaid, however, survived the impossible, crawling out of the pile of the dead. He then joined the Peacekeeper Coalition, vowing revenge against Carter and the United States he represents. Murphy quickly surmised that Kincaid had deployed the missile telemetry transmitter somewhere along the subway line. But even with the powerful soundtrack, a car picked up on the street is no match for a subway train. Dagger Squad quickly ditched the car and boarded the helicopter sent by Mills to continue the pursuit. Riding a helicopter during an FPS campaign? Talk about a big gamble. Thanks to their precise real-time targeting, friendly fighter jets successfully bombed the subway train and the Brooklyn Bridge all to pieces. Just to be safe, the squad landed on the bridge's wreckage to confirm the outcome on foot. Turns out, the telemetry transmitter had actually survived the bombing. Carter, not being the tech expert, didn't have time to shut down each one individually. Since Murphy, the engineer, couldn't get there in time, he desperately screamed over the radio, "Just smash them all." So Carter raced against the countdown and emptied a full magazine into the devices. Did it work? As Carter cautiously climbed out of the subway car, he saw the ominous trail of a missile from the Artemis, tearing across the night sky. The massive shockwave made him stagger even from that distance. And it wasn't over yet. He looked up to see a second missile. Just as despair washed over Carter, the launch finally stopped. That quick burst of fire had worked. Kincaid only managed to launch 2 missiles. Gasping for air, Carter prepared to board the extraction helicopter. Wait, there was still one more. It struck the helicopter with deadly accuracy. Spinning out of control, the aircraft crashed violently into the suspension cables of the Brooklyn Bridge. Amidst the explosions and collapsing structure, Carter was instantly knocked unconscious. When he finally regained consciousness, Carter's first thought was to ask about the missiles. Thankfully, the majority of the incoming missiles had been intercepted. The damage was minimal, the best outcome he could hope for under the circumstances. Just then, Mills informed him that the CIA had relocated the president to a remote safe house outside the city. Carter immediately snapped to attention, forgetting his pain, and jumped up. Wait, Kincaid is not the type to leave empty-handed. He failed to bomb New York. I refuse to believe he'd just walk away. The president is in danger. The overwhelming news coverage confirmed his suspicion. Hours had passed since the first missile strike, yet the White House remained silent. If the president were truly safe, there was no way he wouldn't have appeared on TV. Dagger Squad quickly sped toward the safe house. After fighting off the surrounding enemy forces, they found a small piece of good news amidst the chaos. The security detail, at the cost of half their lives, had temporarily managed to protect the president. However, enemies were still surging forward relentlessly. Trapped there, they couldn't contact the Joint Chiefs of Staff to organize a comprehensive defense and counterattack. After 3 consecutive presidential transport jets, sent to extract him, were methodically shot down by the Peacekeeper Coalition, Dagger Squad had no choice but to risk their lives providing cover for the president to retreat by car. Battling through the enemy's blockade, they finally reached the designated extraction pier. However, with the familiar whoosh of an RPG, the waiting rescue boat was instantly blown to smithereens. It was indeed Kincaid himself who had come for the president. Murphy was immediately knocked down by a punch. Kincaid's fists rained down like a storm on Murphy's face. Go ahead, call him to save you this time, Kincaid roared. I'll show you just how good he is at abandoning his own men. Murphy refused to yield, but a pistol was pressed against Kincaid's neck. Carter had arrived, but Kincaid was far too cunning to be cornered. He scoffed, and several peacekeeper soldiers emerged from the shadows. Carter, momentarily distracted, was tackled, and a knife brutally plunged through his chest. It was then that everyone finally understood. The hideous scars on Kincaid's face were the result of acid, thrown on him by his captors during the interrogation in Iran. With that, he plunged his knife in again, definitively ending Carter's life. As for Murphy, Kincaid's enemies were only Carter and the US government. He genuinely had no interest in killing a mere grunt. In his final moments, Carter had appointed Murphy as the new Dagger Squad leader. Now they needed to seriously figure out who the mole was. In the Brooklyn missile incident, fast forward once more to the present moment. While Lopez and Page were searching Mills' house, another person arrived. It was Hemlock, the former CIA agent Mills later assigned to join Dagger Squad. While providing perimeter security, he noticed Peacekeeper Coalition forces were starting to surround the entire block. Murphy gave a cold smile. Are they here to kill us or to extract someone? Mills was about to retort, don't forget, I'm the one who sent you to Brooklyn to save America. But Murphy didn't waste time arguing. He cut her off instantly. You have 2 choices. Either you're the mole, or Kincaid betrayed you, and you were too incompetent to stop it. You pick which one you want to be. Just as their argument escalated, the president suddenly appeared on TV, announcing that the United States and its allies had officially formed a special task force to completely eradicate the Peacekeeper Coalition worldwide. This wasn't their first attempt. In fact, 2 months prior, U.S. forces had helped local resistance fighters to counter the Peacekeeper Coalition, who claimed they were helping the Egyptian people build their homeland while ruthlessly plundering resources across the country. So, the sky belongs to the peacekeepers, right? Regardless of the president's grand strategy, Dagger Squad had to deal with the immediate threat first. After letting the enemies close in, Murphy gave the order. Dagger Squad unleashed their surprise attack, and the peacekeeper soldiers dropped hard to the ground. Amidst the chaos, Mills took the chance to grab a knife, cut her restraints, and slip out. Dagger Squad didn't bother to chase her. Murphy had already suspected the peacekeepers were there to rescue her. By tracking her, he could completely confirm whether she was the mole. And if she was, at least she was leading them right to the enemy. But before that, Murphy had one more thing to clarify. Was Hemlock truly one of Mills' operatives? Because 4 days earlier, during the operation in Tajikistan, Hemlock had exhibited extremely erratic behavior. Or was it really just as he claimed, that he simply never held back against the enemy? Shortly after Hemlock joined Dagger Squad, the entire team was ordered to Tajikistan to destroy the Peacekeeper Coalition's anti-air defenses and execute a decapitation strike against their leadership. Guided by Dagger Squad, the Air Force successfully breached the dam that housed the coalition's anti-air installations. This immediately created a high-risk situation at the Jinqing Dam. Dagger Squad then continued without pause to destroy 4 remaining high-hypersonic medium-range missiles, loaded with high-energy nano-explosive warheads. If launched, these weapons could strike the European mainland within 30 minutes, leading to unimaginable consequences. With the threat of anti-air weapons eliminated, U.S. jets roared in and blew the covers off 2 obvious missile silos. Dagger Squad immediately charged forward, assisting another Allied squad in attacking the 2 remaining silos. Although Dagger Squad managed to successfully take out 1 more, the Allied squad was a moment too late. The missile was moments from launch. At that instant, the Allied squad leader's desperate voice crackled over the radio. "This missile is absolutely not launching." A deafening explosion immediately followed. That squad chose self-sacrifice, destroying the missile and themselves. Blown away by the shockwave, Dagger Squad scrambled back to their feet. There was no time to mourn their sacrifice. They were now certain. Kincaid was hiding in the bunker directly in front of them. Murphy quickly requested air support from Mills. "Just bomb the entire bunker to oblivion and be done with it," he urged. But Mills refused. Her reasoning was simple. She needed to see Kincaid's body with her own eyes. Dagger Squad had no choice but to follow orders and charge into the bunker, facing immense risks. And you know what? They actually cornered Kincaid inside the control room. Hearing Kincaid disrespecting Carter again, Murphy immediately mounted him and paid back every single punch he took at the Brooklyn pier. Mills, listening over the radio, was satisfied. She ordered Kincaid to be executed on the spot. Murphy was curious. "Aren't we bringing this guy back for interrogation?" Mills replied unequivocally. "No, he cannot leave here alive." Kincaid, instead of getting angry, started to laugh. Murphy yelled, "Why don't you ask him why he needs to kill me so badly?" "It's simple," Kincaid announced. "I'm one of her recruits. And the massive financial backer behind the Peacekeeper Coalition is the CIA. Don't worry, once they kill me, they'll kill you all to cover their tracks." Murphy hesitated. Following Page's suggestion, they decided to take Kincaid back for interrogation. However, Mills spoke softly over the radio. "Hemlock." Immediately, a bullet from Hemlock's gun tore through Kincaid's chest. Murphy now remembered the full story. Kincaid had actually lunged forward, producing a knife. Hemlock wasn't executing Mills' order. He was simply stopping Kincaid from closing in and stabbing him. There was no time to figure out if Hemlock was Mills' operative or not. Because, just as Kincaid predicted, after confirming Kincaid's death, Mills indeed called in an airstrike to silence Dagger Squad. Luckily, Hemlock was a skilled helicopter pilot and flew them all out to safety. The squad then went completely dark, returning to the U.S. homeland, which brought them to this very night. After dispatching the surrounding enemies and catching up to Mills, Dagger Squad found her attempting to destroy a list. Mills still tried to defend herself, claiming that the list contained the names of her operatives, planted deep within the Peacekeeper Coalition. She insisted Kincaid must have sold her out, which was why the Peacekeeper soldiers had just raided the safe house. They were attempting to seize this list. Page tossed a suitcase at Mills' feet and gave a cold laugh. "They came here to kill you, yet you packed your bags in advance?" "Right." Murphy was done with the excuses. "It's clear now," he stated. "You embezzled funds to establish the Peacekeeper Coalition. Their so-called leadership are all your people. Your goal was to create a private army." At this point, Mills stopped hiding the truth. "Everything you've said is essentially correct," she admitted. "Except for one thing. The Peacekeeper Coalition isn't a private army. It's the culmination of a generation of planning by deeply entrenched political powers, the military-industrial complex, the CIA, and a whole consortium of special interest groups. Why? Because America needs an enemy. This enemy has to be strong enough to potentially set the entire world ablaze, powerful enough to unite every nation chanting down with the US into a single coalition. Then, by falsely claiming they possess superweapons like nano-explosive warheads, we can paint them as enemies of humanity. That way we can wipe them all out in one sweep." Hemlock, as a former CIA agent, couldn't stomach it anymore. "We should just put her out of her misery," he stated. "Letting her breathe for one more second is an insult to our fallen comrades and all the civilians killed." But Page and Lopez stood firm, arguing, "We are not the Peacekeeper Coalition. We don't stoop to low-level executions." Just as their argument was heating up, Murphy suddenly heard a voice crackle through his earpiece. His reply was simple, just 2 words. Who was he communicating with? Who was giving him this order? There's no definitive answer at the moment, but I think we all have a pretty good idea. What we can be certain of is the content of Murphy's instruction, because right after he confirmed, "Understood," He raised his rifle and aimed it directly at Mills. A gunshot immediately followed. And that's where the story ends. Thank you for watching and liking the video. I'll see you next time.